Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. Lots to get to this morning. We have the latest fallout over that alleged strike on the Kremlin. We'll tell you what we know about all of that. We also have another bank that may be teetering on the brink of failure. This comes as the Fed hikes interest rates yet again, and we face down the debt ceiling deadline. So there's a lot going on. In terms of the economy, we also have new details about exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was hanging out with and how often. Larry Summers, I have some questions for you. And a new effort by our friends over at Media Matters to paint wanting debates as being right-wing. You're going to love this one. You're going to love this one. Also excited to talk to you, Ben Smith, in the show. He has a new book out, and he's talking about, he was with BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed obviously is going under. He was part of that whole 2010s media buildup. Very insightful guy. He's got his own new media company now, so I want to hear from him about the failures there, lessons learned, how we can keep from, any cautionary tales that we should learn from there.
That's right. Before we get to that, I want to say once again, just thank you to everybody who's been signing up for the premium subscription, who's been helping us out, building out the new studio, paying for the new lights. We've just got some exciting news, some big technological developments that we'll be able to debut to all of you. And it does just mean the world to all of us. And once again, monthly members, we love you. We love the yearly. We love the lifetime. We love anybody who is willing to help us out currently at this time. So if you are able, breakingpoints.com. And for those who are asking, as I've said before, we do have a donation button, which is there on the website. We appreciate it very much. And I just want people to understand, too, the studio, it's not like this is the end-all, be-all. This is just, one more step in the phase that we go to. Everything that we're doing is about building things up for the 2024 election cycle to be able to expand coverage, to be able to expand partnerships, report so much of the things that we can do. So we're starting with the studio, but don't worry, everything will continue to scale. We're a startup company, and we build everything by blocks, not like some of these other idiot media companies, which we will be talking to Ben Smith about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
All right, let's start off with Ukraine. So obviously, Emily and Ryan did a great job yesterday of talking about what was going on in this alleged attack on the Kremlin, potentially an assassination attempt. That's what the Russians are claiming by the Ukrainian intelligence services on Vladimir Putin's life. Well, in terms of what we know about the both reaction by the Russians and then the initial denials by the Ukrainians, here's what we have so far. President Zelensky of Ukraine was actually in Finland when the attack happened, and he addressed the allegation on camera in English. Here's what he had to say.
We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapon for this. That's why we don't use it anywhere. For us, that is the deficit. We can't spend it. And we didn't attack Putin. We leave it to tribunal.
Just gonna say, I would say it begs belief, just because, and we'll get into this in a little bit, about the way that they are specifically phrasing their denials. But I think it's also just worth, for anybody who's just joining us and hasn't seen the video, this is some crazy video in downtown Moscow. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. I mean, what we are watching here is this, this is the heart of power inside of Russia, and you can see a drone very clearly coming and striking the flag, which is on top of the domed building there. And actually, whenever there's some zoomed out photos and video of this, Krystal, you literally watch the drone fly past the Kremlin, the entire seat of power and all legitimacy of authority in Russia, before exploding on top of the flag. The Russians claim that anti-aircraft was used to blow up other drones that were in the area. There's, again, the circumstances around all of this are unclear. I want to go back to, though, the initial denial now by the Ukrainian regime. Let's go and put this up there on the screen. And this was a screenshot that was flagged by our producer. Following the news, the actual chief of staff to President Zelensky actually posted 3 fire emojis on his Telegram channel without any commentary, but then deleted the post shortly afterwards.
Deleting the post is almost more of a tell.
Deleting the post is a little bit of a tell, I would say. And the other reason that I think it's so important to think about all of this is that if you read the detailed response, not just by Zelensky, but by the chief foreign policy advisor to Ukraine, who actually put out a tweet in English, he said something which calls into question the entirety of the statement. He said, Krystal, we have never used drones or perpetrated any attack on Russian soil. That's why even pro-Russian or pro-Ukrainian accounts who I follow, people like Michael Weiss and others, are saying this is ridiculous. They're like, the idea that the Ukrainian intelligence services have not carried out both assassination campaigns and even air attacks on Russian soil is ludicrous. You know why it's ludicrous? We even know from the leaked set of Pentagon documents that they not only have done so, but want to do so with long-range weapons. So there's a lot. If you parse the language, Zelensky, funnily enough, is saying, oh, well, we don't have the weapons. First of all, you have the weapons. Second, you actually want more, so you can do even more of this. And third, the idea that the Ukrainian intelligence services have not carried out multiple attacks on Russian soil throughout the course of this war is just a lie, absolutely on its face. Even the most pro-Ukrainian accounts will tell you that. Now, does any of this mean that they are directly responsible? Who knows? Is it a genuine who knows moment? Is it technically possible the Russians could have carried out a false flag? Maybe. I mean, let's think about it a little bit. But first, though, I think we should note that the people who are the most pro-Ukraine here in Washington all want to call it a first flag, because I think by saying that, they are implicitly acknowledging this is a dangerous escalation. One of those is the former CIA director, Leon Panetta. Here's what he had to say.
And former CIA director under President Obama, Leon Panetta. Secretary Panetta, sources tell CNN that U.S. officials had no warning that an attack like this was coming, and that the Ukrainians assure them privately they had nothing to do with it. What's your take?
Jake, this really does smell like a false flag operation on the part of the Russians, a diversion, if you will.
So, false flag, they said it's a diversion. I mean, again, look, anything is possible, but I think we should consider a couple of things. I'm curious what you think, Krystal.
Yeah.
Number one is this. It's humiliating to have a drone. It's like the Chinese balloon thing, but for the Russians. You have a nation that you are at war with that is able to penetrate your innermost defenses and strike at the seat of power in Moscow. I mean, that's humiliating. That would be like if somebody, blew up the statue on top of the Capitol building. That's insane.
Right.
Think about what that response would look like, and the questions it would call to the actual command and control of the Russian regime.
Yeah.
Second, okay, everyone's saying it's a false flag and all that, but we also, again, as I've laid out, Ukrainian intelligence services have long both wanted the weapons to carry out attacks like this, have, justified this, and also are, very obviously gleeful, as we initially showed you in that. So I just think much of the false flag discourse is centered around the fact that here's the basic truth. Whatever you think, this is definitely ratcheting things up a notch.
Well, and whatever you think, it's definitely in the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, even the biggest Ukraine stans who want to believe Panetta that has all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation and a false flag, in the infamous words used to dismiss the Hunter Biden laptop story. Even if you want to believe that, you have to acknowledge the Ukrainians have done some crazy crap already, and they've done it on Russian soil. And you also have to acknowledge, the Russians are liars. So are the Ukrainians. I mean, we know this. And look,
absolutely.
heat of battle, heat of war. I get it. Okay, maybe you can make some excuses for them. But you cannot rely on the word of Zelensky, whether or not anyone in the Ukrainian state, Ukrainian Rotary Club or whatever, had to do with this attack. I think your point about, it's hard to imagine that this would be the type of false flag that they would want to stage, given that also throughout this war, it's really been Putin has really attempted to sort of protect the population from the fallout of the war and not make it feel like this is on their soil and this is coming for them directly, in order to try to maintain support for the war effort. So, it flies in the face of that as well. But just think about it. I mean, we know of two, very, very likely that Ukrainians were involved in two separate assassinations on Russian soil with pro-Russian war bloggers, effectively. We know that they, were very likely involved in the Crimean Bridge. We still don't really know exactly what happened with Nord Stream. They may have been involved. It may have been U.S. on our own, et cetera, but it's not crazy to think that they were involved in blowing that up as well. We know from the leaked documents that they were very interested in obtaining long-range missiles from us so that they could strike further onto Russian soil. So to act like, there's no way this could be them, I think that is incredibly, incredibly naive. I think it is willfully blind, and it frankly irritates me that the media is not more clear about these things because you have so much of the population that they just see Zelensky as a hero and they just dismiss it out of hand of there's no way possible that he could have done this. Think about the incentive that they have here too, which is something that we have always flagged as a real danger. It is in the Ukrainians' interest to have an escalation that would draw us directly into the conflict. So when we look at something like this and we're like, this is insane. You're trying to potentially assassinate the leader of a nuclear-armed superpower? Like, what in the world are you up to? But their calculus is very different. Their interests are not in this way actually aligned with us. They would like to see some sort of escalation that forces our hand and draws us directly into this war because frankly, that is the only way that they would outright win. So that has always been there, but I just really want to urge people to think about how much fire we are playing with here. Because even if you submit there was like a 1% chance that this was the Ukrainians, you have to, these are our partners and allies. They did not warn us probably in advance that they were going to do this. We have no control over them. And we also know from the leaked documents and from a lot of other reporting, we have less insight in some ways into what the Ukrainians are up to because we don't have these deep intelligence networks that we've been working on for decades with regard to the Ukrainians, and they don't let us in on what they're up to. We have less insight into their operations in some ways than the Russians.
Yeah.
So we are playing with fire. This is an insane situation, and it just reminds me again, whatever we can do to get this conflict to an end is incredibly critical.
This is the issue. You know, the NAFO people who are out there are always like, well, the Moscow has tried to assassinate Zelensky. Yeah, who's defending Moscow? Okay?
Right.
If the Ukraine, listen, here's my general take on the matter. People dismiss any concern of ours as some sort of condemnation on Ukraine. Now, here's the deal. If Ukraine wants to put itself in a position to risk its annihilation, they are free to do that. But then, should said risk happen, they should bear 100% of the risk and of the possibility without any of the escalation coming back on us. And that's part of why I'm so annoyed by the discourse around this. Nobody's saying that Ukraine is, quote unquote, not justified or doesn't have the right to retaliate. You can do whatever you want, but whatever you want, you should keep us out of it. And that's the problem, which is that they don't seem to understand we are tied at the hip. Not my choice, I can tell you that, but by the choice, though, of the President of the United States, of NATO, and the entire Western alliance, who seems to have lost their minds. And they seem to think that, you know, we are going to rise and, you know, fall with whatever happens to Ukraine. And if that's the case, then of course, as you said, Ukraine is of their fate and what happens to them is now directly tied to us. And so we should have some say in the matter.
When you're dealing with nukes, what's going on here is tied to everyone on the planet.
Right.
I mean, even if we weren't so directly involved in basically proxy, you know, fighters alongside of the Ukrainians with, by the way, some limited number of boots on the ground and providing a lot of intelligence to help them with their targeting and all of those things. And of course, the money and the weapons and all that we have sent over there. Even if that wasn't the case, every single person on the planet should be concerned about what's going on here.
Sure. And then also, this is another important thing. And by the way, this is coming from Bellingcat, you know, which is definitely one of the more of a pro-Ukrainian group, I think is be fair to say. Put this up there on the screen. They are acknowledging that there are apparent Ukrainian attacks within Russia and Russian-controlled territory over the last 4 days, all using drones. There was a drone attack on a huge fuel storage facility in Crimea. There was a drone attack on an oil depot near the Kerch Bridge. There was two major train derailments in a region inside of this territory, and there also now was the drone attack at the Kremlin. Lots of people kept saying, oh, well, this is an isolated incident. No, it was part of a concerted Ukrainian drone campaign against targets inside of Russia. Now, once again, they can do what they would like, but if they get retaliated against and they get a city wiped out or something like that, well, then that's on them, because that's what war looks like. And then the idea that we should get drawn into it even more, which is what a lot of people here in Washington want, I think is very problematic.
Yes.
I just, you know, for me, the fact that so many people want to call it a false flag is the tell in and of itself, because because by doing that, they can push responsibility off the Ukrainians. Because if we all acknowledge that look, let's just say it's probably almost certainly it was the Ukrainian regime, well, then they have to acknowledge then that they've done something incredibly risky.
I also want you to think about, you know, with Panetta there on with Jake Tapper. Now, if you ever had anyone with a critical view, as we do, or a skeptical view, as we do, go on and say, you know, this really looks like a Ukrainian attack, oh, they'd be up in arms.
Oh, they'd be
There's
freaking
no
out.
way
Yeah.
you could just say that without
Right.
Tapper jumping in and press,
Yes.
which, you know what? He should, right?
Sure.
But you got to do it on the other side, too.
Mm-hmm.
And Panetta's just allowed to float this with no backing, no evidence, no nothing, just because he wants it to be true. And no pushback from the media. This becomes the accepted narrative. Also, to linger on that tweet that we put up earlier showing the various drone attacks in and around Russia from Ukrainians, that also really undermines Zelensky's claim that, oh, we don't even have the weapons to do
That's
this.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
So if your statement of denial really doesn't hold up to scrutiny, that should cause people to have a lot of question marks about what else you're presenting here and whether it is in fact accurate or not. Again, let me just say, if you are more inclined than we are to believe Zelensky's denials and believe this was a potential false flag, please acknowledge there is at least a chance that this was the Ukrainians, and if there's even a chance that they are freelancing and engaging in this type of incredibly reckless actions, that should change your whole way that you're thinking about this war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.